Sustainable development. Why sustainability? Sustainability is the term chosen to bridge the gulf between development and environment. Originally, it came from forestry, fisheries, and groundwater, which dealt with quantities such as maximum sustainable cut, maximum sustainable yield, maximum sustainable pumping rate. How many trees can we cut and still have forest growth? How many fish can we take and still have a fish or Y functioning at the end of the time period? Even when these maximums are observed, the ecosystem itself is not necessarily sustainable, as these are just the components of the overall ecosystem. Furthermore, sustainability can often be achieved in the short run, but not necessarily in the long run. In the 1997 book entitled Measuring Environmental Quality in Asia, by Peter P. Rogers, Kazi F. Jalal, et al., indicators for environmental development are discussed. 9 ways to achieve sustainability are described. Leave everything in the pristine state, or return it to its pristine state. Develop so as to not overwhelm the carrying capacity of the system. Sustainability will take care of itself as economic growth proceeds. Kuznets. Polluter and victim can arrive at an efficient solution by themselves. Coase. Let the markets take care of it. Internalize the externalities. Let the national economic accounting systems reflect defensive expenditures. Reinvest rents for non-renewable resources. Weaken strong sustainability. Leave future generations the options or the capacity to be as well off as we are. Operational criteria for sustainable development: resource depletion and degradation, environmental problems, pollution, land degradation, climate change, poverty reduction, meeting basic needs, health, education, shelter, productive employment, control over common property resources, renewable energy issues, population control, integration of environment into development, environmental impact assessment of development projects, technology for development, rural-urban migration, renewable energy issues, regional and international cooperation. Why is equity important for sustainable development? According to the classical definition given by the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development in 1987, development is sustainable if it meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It is usually understood that this intergenerational equity would be impossible to achieve in the absence of present-day social equity. If the economic activities of some groups of people, sustainable development could probably be otherwise called equitable and balanced, meaning that, in order for development to continue indefinitely, it should balance the interests of different groups of people within the same generation and among generations, and do so simultaneously in 3 major interrelated areas: economic, social, and environmental. When James D. Wolfenson was president of the WB from 1995 until mid-2005, he placed the issues and needs of the developing countries, especially the poorest ones, on the global agenda, yet the role the WB would play was not clear. One area it was sure about was that, as a financial source, it could fund and guide environmentally friendly programs. The WB began looking for projects that would improve the environment and make it a resource to improve people's lives. Today the WB is owned by 184 member countries and has been led by Paul Wolfowitz since June 1, 2005. It lends about $20 billion annually and has about 10,000 staff, of whom about 400 have multidisciplinary training in social and environmental areas. Crisis. Will we have sufficient natural resources for the survival of our burgeoning populations throughout this century? Will we have enough resources to enable the growing populations to live a wealthier and healthier lifestyle, even if we have sufficient basic resources? Will we be able to survive the environmental consequences of their use? We can thus see essentially two conflicting concerns. The first is, will we have sufficient natural resources for our burgeoning populations in the next century? And the second, and perhaps the more serious of the two, is, even if we have enough, will we be able to survive the environmental consequences of their use? Will the currently wealthy countries, and groups within them, be willing to reduce their consumption of the planet's resources and also be willing to reduce the environmental effects associated with the current use of resources? What are the political, social, and economic mechanisms that could be used to facilitate these compromises? What is to be expected of the poor countries? To what extent will their economic growth be provided by the need to compromise on the environment?